Thank you. Get my mic's on. All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone, even though it's only two of you. Mr. Chin, welcome. We are the Graham Planning and Zoning Board, and we're here to conduct the city's business tonight, and there's not many people here, so we're going to certainly get you up here right quick. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. So other than that, let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Bass, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you.
Okay, we're gonna, I guess we'll go ahead and do a roll call again tonight for every meeting now. Mr. Wooten.
Present.
Mr. Bailey.
Present.
The chair, Dean Ward, is here. Mr. Chrisman.
Present.
Mr. Bass.
Present.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll entertain a motion for the minutes if everyone's had an opportunity to view those from last month.
So move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
My compliments to Ms. Jolly for these were copious notes.
Thank you, Ms. Jolly. You did work hard. That was them long meetings. Okay, Justin, let's talk about the new business here. And if we could get the gentleman here get him out quick.
You got to do the February one. We had 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. And we're also gonna hear for a motion to approve the February 1.
So move.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Jolly.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the first item is a rezoning. I don't believe that the applicant is here tonight, but I'll try to walk you through the request, and I think we can probably handle it. So this is a request to rezone 0.21 acres of property from I-1, which is light industrial, to B2 general business for the purpose of possibly constructing an outdoor amenity area, and also to help bring the existing non-conforming structure in the site into compliance with setbacks and buffering requirements. And the entirety of this block is already zone B2. This is the only piece of property that is zone I-1. And this rezoning request, in staff's opinion, would be in character both within the future land use plan and with surrounding zoning and land uses. And as you can see right here, it's a little small here, but I'm going to zoom in here for you. So this is the piece of property surrounding in black here. The line's a little thick, but it's actually a purple color underneath. And you can see the entirety of the rest of the block is zone B2. So right now they have buffering requirements against that B2 due to the land use code changes. However, those buffering code or the buffering would be eliminated between the two based on a B2 versus a B2.
And what's that parcel right beside it to the left of it?
To the left, this is the mill. Oh, no.
That's for the.
Right there with
Right,
the,
Mills.
There's
Oh,
a
it's
alley
Oneida
there.
Mills.
Yes, sir.
yeah, okay.
This is the wedding venue.
Wedding venue.
That's correct.
Grand Mill.
That's right. And
Great,
you can
man.
see on the future land use plan, everything here is designated downtown.
Just for laughs and giggles, what's the benefits of switching it for the property owners to switch from I-1 to B2?
The biggest benefit, when there's an I-1 versus a B2, there's a buffer requirement and also a setback requirement. Those are both eliminated if they go to B2. So they'll be able to expand their amenities out further back on the property, use it a little bit more intensely than what it can be used right now.
Just a curiosity question. I have no particular objection to this, but do we know the nature of the amenities they have planned, or
I
is this
don't.
just a general request?
Yeah, this is a straight request. There's no conditional component to it. So it would just have to be something in concert with the B2, either as a primary or accessory use that's permitted in that district.
Thank you.
She very well could have applied for a special use permit, could she not have?
A special use permit?
Yes.
You probably wouldn't want to do a special use permit for something that's permitted by right in a district.
Well, if we're changing it to B2, she could also run a a bar there, could she not?
Potentially.
But she can't under in light industrial.
Hmm,
A cash bar at a wedding. That's a good way to go.
But if she moves, if we change the zoning and she moves out, then it's zoned with the B2 aspect.
So you're correct about that. The only thing is there are adjacent residential uses, so there would be additional requirements for screening and buffering against those uses under the code.
Mr. Wood, you got anything further? Mr.
Nothing
Bailey?
further.
Nothing. Mr. Christmas? Y'all feel pretty comfortable with it?
I should note, we have to open the public hearing.
Well,
But
we'll-
I'm comfortable with it.
At this time, we'll open the public hearing and we'll ask again, does anyone have any further questions? I apologize.
No, I don't.
No, sir. All right. Well. Mr.
I'd
Chris,
like to make a motion. We approve.
We have to close the public hearing.
I'm gonna close the public hearing at this
Sorry.
time. Any further discussion amongst the board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I'm ready for you, Mr. Christmas.
I'd like to make a motion. We approve this rezoning as requested in conformity with the Graham 2035 Comprehensive Plan 2.2.1, focused development, and 2.3.2, innovative spaces and spaces of innovation.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, do you have business with us tonight? If you do, I was just trying to get you.
We're the amendment with ACC.
Thank you. Thank
Could do
you.
that one now, then.
Let's go ahead and deal with the amendment with ACC.
Of course. So let me move down.
Very last.
G.
Okay.
Number G.
So we have, for item G, it's a citizen initiated request on behalf of Alamance Community College to amend the development code regarding placement of wall signs on a building. Currently, the code prohibits wall signs from extending above the soffit, parapet, or eave line as appropriate of the building to which it's attached. And if the building consists of more than 2 stories, wall signs are not permitted to extend above the 2nd story. In the particular case of Alamance Community College, they have a new building that's going out by the interstate that is a rather tall building. It happens to be 3 stories, and it has a lot of glass on the front. And so given the expanses of windows and its prominent location and the large size of this building, they are asking for a 1-word text amendment to allow signs to be able to extend up to the 3rd story, but not above the 3rd story. Staff does believe this is a reasonable request that would not detract from other signs in the city, and we are recommending approval of the request. And the changes you have in your packets, it's simply to change the word 2nd to 3rd.
We'll open the public comment and hearing at this time. Is anyone here who would like to speak concerning that? If so, please come up and state your name and address.
I'll just speak briefly on this. My name is David Frazee. I'm the Dean of Health and Public Services at ACC. This ACC Biotech Center of Excellence will be a beacon of light, not only for our college, but for the Graham community and the County of Alamance. We are proud of the college and the many opportunities we have to offer students. And as you know, ACC is a key economic driver for the county. We want to let the people know who we are and where we are, and what better way to do that than to be visible to the 100,000 plus vehicles on I-40/85 corridor that pass by every day. So I appreciate your considering this amendment. With the first floor sign, it would be completely invisible to traffic. The second floor, because of the location, it's on a hill, it would be partially blocked. So the third floor, it's aesthetically pleasing, and it just moves it up a little bit and will make it visible to everyone that passes it. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Would you mind spelling your last name for the clerk?
Sure, David Frazee, Frazee.
Thank you, sir.
Is that the front of the building?
Yeah, go ahead and come on up and stick me.
Hello, I'm Rob Harkey with Clark Nexon, architect, worked part of the design team on this project. And as Dean Frazee was just describing, this is the Jimmy Carr facade. If you look on the right of the image, you can see an early placeholder version of that text closest to the interstate. If this was the vantage point for the public way on the interstate, we'd probably be fine with that, with it being on the second floor. But as that previous image showed, what we've realized is the only way to ensure visibility with both the steep embankment as you're approaching from the west, and as you're approaching from the east, the overpass and the topography as you dip down that hill and come back over, you can see sort of the early framing in that image. You're seeing half the second floor and the top of the third floor. So really, public perception of the building from many vantage points is a two-story building. And so to have the signage elevated, it just seems appropriate and fitting. So we're hopeful that you will consider that request.
On the first slide again. That is the third floor location.
That is the third floor location, and we are looking from the kind of campus side of Jimmy Kerr. So if you were heading towards the interstate, you actually can see a 18-wheeler right there. Some of the topography is abstracted for the purposes of the artistic rendering, but this was a marketing image that the college could use. If you've driven by the site, you may have seen this one on the construction fence.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions for either gentleman?
None for the gentleman, just a quick one for Justin.
Yes, sir.
Making this text amendment to third story, do you foresee any unintended consequences for other signage within the county or within Graham?
Not in the county, but in Graham, trying to think, there aren't a whole lot of three-story buildings, especially not ones that are coming in with requests for new wall signage. The Knicks building might be an example. We've got the courthouse that, is a few stories high, and then maybe the new Justice Center. If anything, I think it's going to provide some flexibility for them and visibility. That they
Just
would not
thinking
otherwise
about the several requests from Mr. Kimry, Mr. Cox, 45-foot heights.
So if those were commercial buildings, certainly there would be some opportunity for them to put that sign up on that third floor and maybe be a little bit better seen, at least from traffic, although.
Or possibly our apartments.
Yeah, apartments aren't really a wall sign sort of candidate. They're more of a monument sign sort of candidate.
Okay.
I think this is more tailored to industrial buildings, commercial buildings, multi-use buildings.
The Knicks building is already has signage on the third floor. Is that not correct?
It extends up
That's
to
the
part
third
of the
floor.
third floor. That's
And-
correct.
And probably Green and McClure furniture that be extended to the third
Yeah,
floor.
so those historic signs there, this would actually make them more compliant with the ordinance than what they already are.
Would this sign be on one side or two sides of the building?
The intent would be on two sides of the building, both be facing
Interstate.
eastbound and westbound traffic. The building is a slight
Right.
slant
Mhm.
towards the northeast, so it's a little easier to see from certain angles from the west, but both
Thank you.
similar sizes.
Thank you. Mr. Bass? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chrisman. Mr. Chrisman, you got any further?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Bass?
I have no comments.
Yeah, I have a question. Is it gonna say Alamance Community College, or is it gonna be named after a person? I can't, I see Alamance, but I can't.
Right, okay, that's one of the things that the discovery from the design team, the vantage points and the distance views. Right now, Alamance would be the largest. Okay. Microphone. Sure. Alamance Community College would be written in the top. Underneath, at this point, it would be Biotechnology Center of Excellence.
Okay.
Legibility from a distance, you may get Alamance.
Right.
And then eventually you'll get the college, and you'll get, as you drive closer, you can get the rest
Okay.
of it, so.
Thank you. Justin, just curiosity, me and Mr. Wooten had a conversation prior to hearing this tonight, and it was potentially talked about a variance of the sign ordinance. I mean, is that something that you think that this would be better suited, or do you think it would be better suited for the city to adopt it citywide?
The text amendment is definitely the better process. The variance process is governed by state statute, and there are very, very specific parameters that have to be met. And if all of those parameters aren't met, you cannot grant a variance under state law. And this one definitely does not qualify because it's a new construction, it's a self-imposed hardship, and it's not a situation that's unique to this building that other buildings don't have. So a variance is simply not possible in this case.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for
Great
clarification.
question.
All right. At this time, I'll close our public hearing, and any more discussion amongst the board members?
Nothing here.
If not, I will entertain a motion.
Is the sign lighted,
Would be illuminated, yes.
Okay. backlit, or spotlight on it?
Intent now is backlit, a white sign.
All right. Any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Pages were numbered. I would tell you what page to go to. I think
I'll make a motion. We change the ordinance as presented, to change it from second floor to third floor. Everything else stays the same, in accordance with the Graham 2035 comprehensive plan. I'm now classified under 2.2.1 focused development.
Thank you, Mr. Chrisman. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Bias. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. All right, Justin, we'll go to item number B. And since Mr. Wooten was not with us at the time, we're going to just open these up and skim through them. I know we have previously passed these back in November and December, but I want to hear Mr. Wooten's point of view.
Absolutely. So the first one is text amendment request for special uses permit, special use permits uses listed. Basically, it's applicable to special use permits and also the permitted uses table. At the time, this particular amendment was recommended for approval by the planning board in concert with trying to get the Board of Adjustment to hear special use permits. However, the city council, when it changed over, decided that they wanted to continue hearing special use permit cases. So that kind of impacted this ordinance a little bit. So this would become, I think, better handled as part of the Unified Development Ordinance update that we intend to hopefully get as part of the budget for next year. But with that said, we are trying to reclassify those items that were previously established as special use permit items that perhaps could be better placed by right in certain categories. And then also some of the things that probably should be special use permits but weren't, trying to classify them there as well. So that's the intent of this particular ordinance. Again, it might be more beneficial to handle this more comprehensively as part of the Unified Development Ordinance update, especially as we start to come up with expanded and new definitions, different land use categories that we have not had anticipated in this ordinance in the past. So that would be staff's opinion. But I would love to hear from Mr. Wooten if possible, just to.
Certainly,
get your side.
the overall impression I get, and I did try to go through this as very thoroughly as I could, and unfortunately kept falling asleep. Um, The overall impression is that this is a extensive housekeeping. And
Yes.
I'm all in favor of keeping things neat, clean, and making sense. So that's the only comment I have on this one.
Yes, sir. And just to expand, the idea of the special use permit is to classify those uses that really have no other place in the ordinance. So very unusual or very intensive uses. So your landfills, your airports, your, maybe junkyards, waste incinerators, things that are so hard to classify or that might be so intensive that they need their own list of special requirements to go with it and site plan specific approvals. So that's the intent.
Right. I lied to you. I do have one other question.
Great.
Just looking through here, I did not see anything that evoked a sense of urgency at this point.
I would.
And this relates to whether we want to do this now or as part of the overhaul of the UDO. Is there a pressing need to do this at this point? Or
No,
is
sir.
this just,
Nope, these were housekeeping items, just as you mentioned. So
Okay.
I'm happy to keep house as part of the UDO update. At the time, we weren't sure if that was looking positive or not. It is appearing more and more likely that it's going
Okay.
to be funded. So
all right, then I would leave it to your discretion as to how you want to handle this. This is fine with me.
Any further discussion, Mr. Bass? Mr. Christmas?
Fine, thank you.
Mr. Bailey?
No,
Justin, we've taken action on this before, but I guess since I opened this up again, do we need to vote on it again?
yes, sir.
Okay,
And we have to open the public hearing and close the public hearing and all that.
okay, we're gonna open the public hearing and ask the public if they have any questions or anything about this text amendment that they don't understand or want to know. Anybody would like to speak? Thank you. We're gonna close the public hearing. And I think we've had our discussion here concerning, is any further discussion amongst this board? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the change as presented in conformity to the Graham 2035 plan and best practices.
Thank you, Mr. Christmas. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Justin, we're ready for number C.
Sorry, this one's a long one. I'm paging through here. Okay. So the next item is a text amendment, once again, that most of the commission heard on December 21st of 2021. These items were deferred back to the planning board by the previous city council. Since there was a new incoming council, they felt that it would be better for this council to work on these particular amendments. So this one is, again, it was a citizen request, citizen initiated request, not a staff initiated request. And this one was to clarify the waiting period for when an applicant is able to reapply for a rezoning following a denial by the city council. Initially, there was some disagreement in interpretation between the planning director and the citizen. The language says that if there's in case of a denial by the city council for requested change in zoning of a particular area, there should be a 6-month waiting period before another request may be presented for the same zoning change of the same area. Well, they reduced the amount of area, but it was the same zoning request for the same containment of properties. It just was a little bit less area. My interpretation was that's the same request. Their interpretation was, well, we made it smaller, it's not the same request. So this is to try to clarify that. So the proposed language simply adds that one sentence that this waiting period shall not apply when the original property area is reduced in total size by 10% or more, or when multiple parcels are involved and the total number of parcels in the denied request are reduced in number. And that's simply to avoid the same situation that we had previously with that citizen.
What if they reduced the number, they added another parcel?
I would consider that a different request.
So unless the total number of parcels in the original request is changed, or is different than the original request rather than reduced?
Yeah, we could say changes in total size by 10% or more. I think that would probably accomplish that.
Well, if they added another parcel, it might not be 10% of the total parcels, but it'd be another parcel.
I see what you're saying. We could do, when the original property area is changed in total size by 10% or more, or when multiple parcels are involved and the total number of parcels in the denied request are changed in number.
Right.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm good.
Yeah, the comment that I would have, Justin, is that anybody coming back, this change should be a substantive change. It should definitely be different.
That's the idea behind the
Right.
10%.
Well, I would suggest that instead of 10%, it should be more on the order of 20 to 25%
Okay.
to ensure that it is indeed a substantial change in the request, either additional or deleted. And then in the case of multiple parcels, well, let me back up. That conjunction, or I would say and. So it would be a combination of the change in the size and the change in the number of parcels. I could see a situation where if it were 10%, you had a reduction of one parcel, that parcel may be less than 10% of
So,
the total size, total area.
so if you change the or to and, then they would have to change it in size by 20% or more. And there would have to be,
In the case of multiple parcels, they would have to change it at least one or more.
okay,
I think that's too restrictive. And in the special use permit, in a small area, closed area like the ones we've been looking at, especially the last one we looked at on Maple and Market, they came back because they changed the whole plan. But to add another 20% to change it again or drop 20% off of it is a huge chunk of that whole project. Small space, you don't have that much leeway to add.
Well, I think that's the point in making it a percentage instead of a.
Well, you have and in there. If they're two parcels,
And in the case of multiple parcels, you may have a situation where you don't have multiple parcels,
Yeah,
then
but
only
if-
the percentage of the area would apply.
have two parcels, and they make substantial changes in the whole building design. And they're landlocked. There's no buying or selling on either side, and they're just out of luck. I think there's unintended consequences there that then they are have no option there.
That could very well be.
But so, yeah, if to develop something in established zone, you should have at least,
So you would
Three
say
parcels.
leave it or instead of and.
I think, or, yes.
I can live with that.
All right, I'm gonna open up the public hearing, and is anyone from the audience who'd like to speak about this? Mr. Eulis, you're one of our local developers and builders, and just wonder if you had any comment about that.
I'm Dennis Eulis. I'm a builder developer here in Graham, and I build throughout the state. If I make a substantial change in my building that actually is enticing to the city, so if I cut number of units, or if I change the structure or ability, and I'm coming for a special use permit, then I wouldn't want to be held for 6 months out. I'd like to hear the comments from the board, make my adjustments, and then come back as fast as I could, because 6 months is a lot of time and project and a lot of money. Now, if y'all give me input and stuff like that, and I'm willing to listen to it and make the changes, then I would like to be able to come back faster than that. But I understand you don't want to do the same stuff 3 or 4 times and bring the same stuff back. I don't know how to fix that problem, but I know everybody's wanting nice, and it's a certain product we're wanting. And so you could change something, the quality of something, and get somebody to look at it a little different, especially when you're doing special use permit, because you get to see all my buildings, all my structures. It ain't all about how many units you put on something. It's how nice they're gonna be when we get finished. So I don't know, I take that in consideration as well.
Thank you, Mr. Eulis. Any questions for Mr. Eulis? Thank you. Anybody else from the audience like to speak? All right, thank you. I'm gonna close the public hearing, and any further discussion here, Jerome? Pass.
I was thinking that it seems that when people come before us, before the city council, they've been given the option to, I think it's going to get, they've been given a good review of a review by the committee, or the city council or the committee. And the option is to table it or to go up for judgment. So I think people get an option, are given an option there for getting a review and coming back the next month or whatever. I like the idea of the 25%, 20 to 25% option.
Mr. Bader?
Well, did we agree on 20?
We hadn't agreed on
We
anything
haven't
here.
agreed on
Okay,
anything.
all right, that's what I want to know.
Mr. Wooten, you have any further?
Nothing further. Thank you.
I'm concerned about this percentage. I understand the process, and we don't want to hear the same thing that had been denied coming right back month after month
That's
after
correct.
month. I'm concerned about the percentage of 10%, but 10% of what? Could it be structure? Could he do 10% changing in his parking lot?
Well, this says the original property area. So
Does that mean the overall project has to change by 10%?
10%.
So if we was looking at a 240 unit apartment complex like they built down there on Woody Drive, that would be a substantial reduction, change, or something that would, if it was denied and they come back, that would be something very substantial in the 10% range when you start talking large numbers.
However, well, yeah, it does. Now, it's for the same zoning change. So, I mean, ultimately, they could come back with a conditional rezoning in lieu of a multifamily, and
Right.
help resolve that problem.
So as the planner, what specific area do you see this creating the most discussion before the city council? What is I guess it's gonna be our biggest picture that's gonna give you the hard time of the 10%. What would that be? Would it be mixed use, or would it be straight rezoning?
It's hard to say. It seems like most of these are going to apply to a straight rezoning request, because a conditional rezoning request is different no matter what, unless they were to come back with the exact same plan. Each time they apply for conditional rezoning, it's basically a different rezoning request. It might still say conditional rezoning, but they're site plan specific. So if they change, a little bit of stuff on the site plan, that's a different request. So they wouldn't have that waiting period.
Okay.
It's when we get to like a R7 to B1 type of request, where they're like, well, we want B1, and they're like, well, no, And then they're like, well, we still want B1, give us B1. That's where the problem is going to come in. You know,
Well, not talking about any individual project that recently was denied.
Mhm.
And it wasn't denied for any reason that we're talking about
Mhm.
here, but if any of those projects was to come back before you now and they resubmitted, we're talking that they would have to meet this 10%.
that's correct. So if it's, let's see, so as long as it's not a conditional rezoning, so if it's a straight
Straight.
rezoning, that's really the only time that this is going to apply. So in those cases, if somebody was going for an OI from a R12 and they got denied, then they come back, they reduce the property area by 10% or 20% or whatever, then we would waive that 6-month waiting period because it'd be a substantial change to allow them to move forward with a quote unquote different request.
I just want us to
It's
be,
not going to happen often. Let me just say it that way.
I want us to be
This was a very
friendly.
Specific request.
I want us to be an inviting and friendly town to build in, and I want developers to come to Graham to build, and
Yes.
I don't want to throw up roadblocks that's going to prevent them. Time is money to a developer, as interest or
If I can be very honest, Mr. Chair, the easiest way to handle it from staff's perspective would be to recommend that they go for a different zoning classification that helps them achieve what they're looking to do.
and I appreciate that, but is that in our previous department head, he would not help developers achieve what they was trying to achieve. So if they come in and wanted something, that he would say, you know, here it is, black and white, and he wouldn't recommend, well, you got a better opportunity if you would proceed with a conditional rezoning.
Oh, no, we definitely lead them towards a way to get it done.
Great.
Uh,
That's what I want to hear, that
Yeah,
you're working
so-
with it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question on background. We're talking about time periods. Is there any reason, or was this discussed, changing it from 6 months to something like 2 months or 3 months?
We never looked at that part, honestly. I think the idea behind the 6 months was to give it enough time where market forces might change, their requests might change in scope, or, you know, perhaps somebody comes along with a better request that's more in line with the growth management plan. I think that's where the 6 months comes from. 2 months is still a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
deny it and then they could, it's, let's see. So it's 6 months from when the denial is from the city council, so they could actually start it back into the process earlier than that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
I agree with Mr. Wooten. 6 months seems like a long time. If they got feedback from us, they got feedback from the city council, and they know what they have to do, please, both bodies, then 6 months is a long time to wait when they go back and especially the big developers that have an engineering staff have engineers on staff.
I would just reiterate that that's mostly going to apply to conditional residential
Right.
or conditional commercial. And those ones, any change to the plan is a change in zone. Because it's plan specific. So if you come back with a different plan, it's a different zoning request. So this really wouldn't apply in those cases. It's really only for OI, R7, R9, B2, B1, B3, I1, I2.
Any further?
What about if the original property here you got reduced again? What if it's increased?
So we were thinking the words changed would be
Better than-
beneficial for both of those where it says reduced.
Thank you.
What if a new developer brings the same property, project,
Same exact project.
same exact project, and he's never been before the council or this board?
They were never denied by the city council.
So then they could proceed forward.
They have every right to apply separately.
Okay. Any further? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion since I'm on a roll, that we approve the change to the proposed change in the language in accordance with the Graham 2035 plan and best practices and based on what other jurisdictions are doing.
Can we specify what the changes were?
Changes are the area is changed, reduced to changed on both instances,
Okay. And what about the percentage?
10%.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number D, please.
Okay, so the next one, again, was heard by the previous planning board and the previous city council, December 21st, 2021. City council on January 11th of 2022. It was once again sent back after an approval recommendation from the planning board. So following the guidance from the UNC School of Government and pursuant to state statute 160D 705C, staff is proposing an amendment to the development ordinance to authorize administrative approval of minor modifications to an approved special use permit. Currently, staff has little ability to allow even the smallest changes to this type of project, which can put us in a bind when developers need our assistance for something minor that might have come up in the field, or when the site was fully engineered following the initial special use permit approval. This would help keep the project moving forward. So development still would meet the underlying zoning requirements, but this would allow a little bit of flexibility in the overall design. And Chapter 160D does clearly authorize such site design modifications as long as they're defined in the ordinance and subject to the prescribed limits. And these changes would need to follow clear objective standards, thus creating a ministerial approval process rather than a quasi-judicial approval process. So there are also dimensional standard modifications. This would be changes to underlying zoning standards. These could include such things as reductions in parking requirements or building setbacks that would be set by ordinance. These modifications would not be expressly authorized by 160D, but arguably could be authorized under general zoning authority and applicable case law. And as suggested in case law Butterworth versus City of Asheville, there may be authority to allow minor dimensional standard modifications as administrative minor modifications, but these decisions would have to be based, again, on clear objective standards and would have to follow a clear, fair process. So staff has tried to capture these requirements in the amendments before you. And we have also made changes to section 10.347 to reflect the same available modifications for plans approved by either TRC or City Council, including those as approved as part of a conditional rezoning. So we are recommending approval. But once again, this is not a front burner item. These could very well be handled as part of a unified development ordinance update. So just throwing that out there for you.
Personally think we need to let this be handled by the Unified Development Ordinance. It's coming along.
How many times does this occur?
Often.
In some examples.
So let's say East Gilbreth, you approve the conditional rezoning for the townhomes in the middle, single family around the edges. They have the two road connections up top. Let's say DOT comes in, needs to widen, and they can't build those lots that were shown along East Gilbreth. They'd have to come all the way back to be able to allow that reduction in density of the overall site. Or let's say they're out in the field and they discover that they're on a fault line. I don't, just throwing that out there. Can't build the lots here, or have to move the road south by 100 feet and kind of reorient the lots. That would have to come back to the city council for approval. So
the entrance at Raleigh Meadow, Raleigh Woods, whatever on
Riley's Meadow.
that, I know that came back,
There's,
changed the entrance.
we're talking minor things here. Things that should not hold up a development in the process, but do because of process.
What the chair was mentioning about the Unified Development Ordinance. That's in the works for 2023.
We are hopeful and anticipatory that it will be.
That it would be done in 2023 or
No, it
Finished.
will be begun in 2023. Well, take that back. If we get it in the budget, if we would do an RFP almost immediately, which would probably start the project around September. Yeah, it would be done probably in 2023. It'd be done probably by the end of the year.
then what about our process for approving it and things like that?
That's all included. There'd be several meetings, lots of public meetings. There'd be surveys, all that's kind of ongoing as we go through the process, basically. So consultants have specific targets that they have to meet, time-based targets. As they meet each target, then we meet with the planning board, we talk about it. Consultant does a presentation, we hold a public meeting when we get to like a quarter of the way or half of the way through. Solicit public comment, take those back to the consultant, we talk about them with the planning board and so on and so forth until we finally reach a product that's approvable by the city council. So
Okay, so we're looking year and a half out. And this comes up several times a year, you'd say, you have to make this.
based on previous development patterns, yes. However, we are noticing that some development is starting to slow down a little bit. So I expect they'll come back less frequently while development is slower. But again, as market forces change, if development picks up again, we get a lot of these big corporations that might be bought out or might run into things in the field. That's typically when we'll see them. So.
Stanford?
It's broken, but it works.
Mr. Wood?
Thank you. Just several comments. I'm not going to touch on any of the details of the text amendment itself. Just several thoughts had occurred to me as I was reading through this and looking at it. First of all, the increased workload for you and your staff. I would be very concerned about that. If this, like you said, if it does pick up, it could be an undue burden for you guys as stretched as you are right now. I'm not sure how that would affect the overall.
So I can answer that actually while you're spitballing here. The amount of work that goes into bringing these before a planning board and a city council is tenfold compared to what it would be handling this through the TRC and through staff. It takes a lot of effort to put a planning board packet together. So I think the workload part would be okay.
Okay. The second thing is that one of the consequences I could see just coming from a project management background is that once developers learn that they can maybe not plan as extensively or as really as well as they should, may come in with the attitude, well, if I have a little change, I can always go see Justin and make that. And you may have an abundance of these types of requests could lead to developers getting a little sloppy. Maybe off the wall, but who knows, you know.
No, that's a very good point.
I've seen a lot of stuff like that through the years. The other thing is, in any kind of a situation like this where you have that administrative leave to do certain things, and this is not to comment on your integrity or anything else, as I said before, this, I think, in some ways can leave open possibility for certain acts of impropriety. So we want to be very, very careful about how things are actually done. how things
Absolutely.
take place. So just, again, not meaning to
No,
make any comment.
totally
about that.
understand.
And I would agree with the chair that this would probably be better done as part of a major overhaul and in a very holistic manner.
Mr. Christman, any further?
I'm fine now, thank you.
Mr. Bass?
I'd prefer to see it done as a major overhaul of the code myself.
Thank you. I'll open up the public hearing. Is anyone here that would like to speak to that? Mr. Hugo? All right. If no one's here, we'll close the public hearing and Justin, I don't think we need a motion on this, do we? If we're gonna, I don't know if we're tabling it, are we just gonna remove it from the agenda and no action taken and,
Well,
or
it's
do you
been-
want me to make a motion?
it's been advertised to go to council, so I think we have to make a motion. But I think either way you go, the council's got your directives as far as the appropriate way to handle it, and I think it's it'll be well received.
I would make a motion then that we deny it at its present time and recommend to council to consider sending this to the Unified Development Ordinance potentially for review at a further date.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Christman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number E.
Okay, so I know this says special use permits. That's incorrect. This is actually a text amendment for multifamily signage. So the request is to amend Article 10 signage in the development ordinance to create a provision for entry signage for multifamily mixed-use developments containing residential units as well as, for multifamily developments, mixed-use developments containing residential units, and also for major subdivisions. So currently, if, let's say, an apartment complex or a very large neighborhood like Riley's Meadow or another large development that has a residential component to it, needs an entry sign, and it's not a conditional use conditional zoning where they've specified that they can have a large sign. The development ordinance allows that the sign may be up to 10 square feet. And that is minuscule as far as the comparative to the size of these neighborhoods. And it would be very difficult to find the neighborhood with a 10 square foot sign. So staff simply trying to, again, close one of these oddities in the code to try to help development out. The recommendation previously by this board and staff is wholly in agreement was that 36 square feet would be the appropriate size to suggest. And this is one where I think having it considered before the UDO update would probably be very beneficial as many of these developments as we're getting right now.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin or any comment before I open the public comment?
Nothing here.
No,
Mr. Christman?
How'd you come up with 36 square feet?
We did during the,
I thought that was. I thought we argued- I was
I
arguing
think-
for 48, you were arguing for more.
I thought I was really arguing for 48 and I think you recommended 36.
I actually think that we were going for 24 originally and 36 was decided on because 48 was suggested. So we
Yeah.
literally split the difference between
Yeah.
the two.
Okay,
Some extensive math was done, I know that.
all right, I'll open the public comment. Any comment from anybody? Thank you. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hugo Kreischer, 2005 Cherry Lane, Paul River, North Carolina. On the sign, I'm just curious, so the 36 square feet, that is going to be a future requirement? Is that how I'm understanding
A
it?
requirement, no, an
Okay.
allowance, so maximum allowance.
Okay, I got
So
you.
it can't be any bigger than that, but we're
Up to.
allowing it to
Up
go
to.
from 10 right now, which
And
would
what's
be the max to 36.
what's the smallest allowable, just out of curiosity?
There's no minimum size.
Okay, good. All right, I was just curious.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Eulis, come on back up.
So when you talk about 36 square foot, is that the whole sign box?
No,
Or
so
just the
this is
sign
just where
itself?
the words are. So a
Oh,
sign
that's-
is defined as where the emblems, the logos and the words are.
That's fine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any further? Thank you. I'll close the public comment and entertain a motion if there's no further discussion.
For 36 square feet.
36 square feet of sign itself, not the overall. The letters of the sign,
Or the writing.
clarify.
I'll do one. I'll make my attempt.
Thank you. Mr.
I
Brown.
move that we recommend approval of the application as presented
At 36 square feet.
at 36 square feet.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I hear a
Second it.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. So this next one, yet another one that was kicked back from city council after an approval recommendation by the planning board. This is yet another one where there's no pressing concern on the part of staff as far as any citizens' concerns or anything that are being addressed here. This one, again, could very well be handled as part of a more holistic unified development ordinance update. So this is a request to amend the development code regarding the open space provisions that are related to major subdivisions. And so we've had situations in the past where developers, based on the way the ordinance is currently written, they're using stormwater facilities, leftover tiny unusable spaces, and they're counting these towards their open space in order to get smaller lot sizes, which are allowed under the ordinance. We're trying to close that loophole, basically. We're trying to make the definition of usable open space much stricter. And we're also trying to add in requirements for trails and things like these so that we're getting something in exchange for allowing them these smaller lots by right that they're allowed in the ordinance. So that's where we're at. Again, it's not a pressing thing, but we have gotten a couple of these in the past year. Sometimes they try to do right by the ordinance, sometimes they don't. So
Justin, this is one that I remember talking to you about tying in
with the recreation.
recreation. I
Yes.
wanted to tie it in
And
with
I
this.
agree that as part of the UDO update would be a very sensible way to approach.
I want the
this.
developers to be able to use it, but I want to take some strain off of the city's facilities and
Yes.
do some pocket parks and
Yes.
create some ball fields and stuff in their non-usable open space to
Yes.
give them the right to use up that open space.
Agreed.
So, Mr. Wooten, you got any questions?
Yeah, I agree with the intent of the text amendment, but I think it would be better, as we said, to make it part of the UDO overall.
Bailey? Mr. Chris?
I think it should be part of the UDO overall, but we have a lot of large housing developments that come before us that could utilize the loopholes in the next year and a half. I'd assume close them before horse gets out of the barn.
I don't think this will affect the ones that's already approved.
No, but if there's any more in the works.
Do you have anything that you know that potentially could be substantial?
So there's one called Meadowview that was an extension near the Oakmont neighborhood in that area. They had just a sliver of remaining property that was on R12. However, they did provide us with a walking trail easement, and they do have an exceptional amount of river-like area floodplain. So in that one, it was a very justifiable reduction to allow them to have the smaller lots. So that one was approved. There's one more that I've heard rumblings may come in as an R12, but again, I think they're going to run into a significant amount of floodplain area. A lot of these outstanding developments have some significant environmental issues. Floodplain is okay when we get into steep slopes, however, then it becomes unusable open space. So, at that point, it's kind of, well, it becomes a wash for the city. We don't really get any amenities, but I've found most developers in Graham are very agreeable to either providing a walking trail or providing a walking trail easement when it's determined to be part of a connection to a trail system. So I think most people are trying to do right, but there's always the chance that we'll get the one that doesn't. So
So if there's an urgent need right now, if we go ahead and approve this, you can still take it up as part of the UDO overhaul, like
absolutely,
what
yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so
Chair was saying.
ultimately, it's up to city council. If they decide they want to defer it to the UDO update, that's fine. If they want to go ahead and make a decision on it, that's fine. We'll go ahead and put it in the ordinance and we'll start acting on it now. So, either way, I think it's a good amendment, but however the city decides that they want to go with the process is fine. It's not urgent.
Mr. Bass?
So we don't see too many projects coming up in the next.
There's not many. Most of the ones you're going to find, and it's somewhat unfortunate, is going to be in that Rogers Road area where there's a significant amount of stream land and, and that's the area where the density is already an issue. And so those residents raise Cain when they see a lot that's 10,000 square feet, thinking, oh, the city's approving lots that are too small, whereas in reality, the overall density hasn't changed. It's just that there's a bunch of open space and they're having to cluster those lots in a little bit. So there's perception issues with these types of developments. But that's, something that we just explain as part of the process.
I've had a lot of experience sitting on this board, and Mr. Crispin has too, where we've approved things thinking that we was going to see R12, and it ends up being
R10.
R10.
Yep.
And I've heard from numerous citizens about it. I don't think this is something that we should rush to make something happen tonight. Because I certainly think we need to try to tie our recreation amenities into it. And a good example is one of the projects on Rogers Road. I think a gentleman was able to pick up 30 lots, 30 additional lots because of the amount of floodplain that he was in, and was able to reduce his lot sizes. We got this problem, we see it, we know it, and it's going to be addressed, but I don't think we need to jump to the conclusion and do something hastily that we can make one good ordinance the first time around, potentially to send to council for their approval. And I think it was the council's desire to see parks and amenities in each one of these developments to relieve some of our parks that we have now of overcrowding and stuff like that.
Yep, I concur.
So it would be my position is if we was to move forward is to recommend to council to hold off until we do the unified development ordinance.
Sounds like a good plan of action to me.
All right, I'm gonna open up the public hearing, and is there anyone here that would like to speak about this particular item? Thank you. I'm gonna close the hearing and I'll entertain a motion. You want me to make this one?
Go right ahead.
I recommend that we deny this right now and have the council request that the council submit this to the unified zoning ordinance that we're potentially talking about. And we would proceed forward from there. At the council's direction. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 7 is public comments of non-agenda items. I don't think, Justin, you have any other business, do you?
No, I'll have one staff comment for you, but I'll let the public speak first.
Okay. Mr. Eulis is here tonight. I know he wants to speak, and Mr. Wooten's got some things he wants to talk about too.
Did
I'm
I?
gonna take,
I think I've already covered it.
okay, thank you, Mr. Woot. Mr. Eulis, if you would.
Again, like I'm saying, I'm a developer here in Graham and a builder, and had a TRC meeting on Monday on a project I'm looking at doing on Gilbert Street. Didn't have a problem with most of the items, normal stuff that I've got to address, and I will address to the next meeting. The lighting was an issue. We have They want a lighting plan now in the TRC meeting. At that particular phase of my project, it's almost impossible to do that without going to a private lighting company instead of Duke Power. Duke Power will not assign me an engineer to my site until I have a true site. Until I get through TRC, I don't have a project. I only have a project when they approve my plans, and then Duke Power will send me somebody. The engineer will come in and then they'll design my lighting for me. I'm not trying to not do a lighting plan. I'm just saying at that particular time, it's not really a time that I can get that plan done. I like Duke Power lighting, and I'll tell you why. If you pay your $34 a month, they will keep up the poles, keep up the lights, keep up the globes for a long time. It's a 10-year contract. So for the city of Graham, and I realize they're private lighting, but for the city of Graham, y'all get the calls if lights are out, they'll call y'all. And then y'all gonna turn around and try to get in touch with the developer and tell them they light the parking lot up. With Duke Power doing that, they make sure that's always working and that contract's enforced. And if I don't pay that $34, they will sue me for it. So it actually keeps us doing the right thing. Even if I sell the property, it moves along with the property. They have to commit to take the same contract. Like I said, I'm not trying to figure out that way to not do a lighting plan. I think we should do one. I just think at that particular time in the TRC meeting, it's not time. I think y'all just passed that the way Justin's
Yeah.
told me.
I was going to mention, Mr. Ulis, not to interrupt you. The chair and I spoke about this, and I think we've found an avenue forward for you where you can do it that way. So
Yeah.
So I think we're going to be okay proceeding with Duke and then doing the light plan after.
Yeah, I'm
But-
okay placing on the plan. I'm okay obligating myself to
Yeah,
it. Not a problem. Not
When
trying to
Duke
get out of
comes
nothing.
in, we'll just have them make sure that it's in concert with your landscaping plan so that there's no conflicts there.
Okay,
So we'll work it out with you.
okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
Mr. Eulis, one question. If you had to follow this process, what is a time frame that you think it would take to get you a lighting plan and before you could get back to TRC?
In this environment with Duke Power behind schedule and being able to get to an engineer, 3 to 4 months
Mhm.
So it would delay your project by 3 to 4 months.
Yeah. to get that plan from Duke Power.
Yeah, I think Duke's only got 2 people doing lighting plans
Yeah.
right now for the whole state.
Ooh.
That's how bad it is. They're all in Charlotte.
Thank you, Mr.
I think there's only 2 of them.
And Justin, does he need to call you tomorrow or so he can?
He can get with me tomorrow, but yeah, we'll work it out.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, Mr. Wooten.
I had mentioned to Chair earlier today about the number of text amendments that we have on the agenda. And I was just wondering, in light of the fact that we're looking more seriously now, apparently, at doing an overhaul, do we need to be looking at these text amendments every
So-
week, or do we need to kind of?
So that's a great question. These are all holdovers from last year. So that's the only reason we're seeing so many of them right now. They got backlogged. I believe your May meeting is the last of the backlog, and then we are smooth sailing from then on. So we got one more review, but you've already seen, I believe, all of the ones in May also. You haven't, but everybody else has. So it's going to follow a very similar path to how this meeting went. If that helps answer your question.
Thank you.
Mr. Bailey? Justin, just a point of clarification as far as agenda setting. If you would, after May, if someone wants to make a text amendment or request a text amendment, it's been this board's practice in the past, if you don't appear before us, we generally don't approve it. And that's been a practice of this board for many years that I've been on it.
Yes, sir. Just to clarify, is that only text amendments or are we talking rezoning?
Well, everything, if,
Okay.
you know, if you.
So an item on the agenda, basically.
If someone calls you a concerned citizen or whoever, I would suggest to you as the planner, if you would make a suggestion to them that we would like to hear from them.
Yes, sir.
And if we don't see them, most likely, I mean, we will do our process, but most likely it probably won't be approved. And they very well could have some good aspects of what they're requesting.
Yes, sir.
But I want to see and hear the concerns so we can ask the questions that we need to ask to the petitioner.
I agree.
Uh,
And I think it's fair to the public that the person requesting it be available at the
Right,
meeting to
right.
speak and
So if,
justify
you-
why they're asking.
if you would see if you could take care of that issue, and then
Yes.
any further ones that staff would like to bring before us, great.
We will coordinate with you before we
I
do
don't-
any of those.
I just don't, we've been having a lot of long meetings, and Miss Jolly's been staying over a long time, and I don't like the overtime.
Form us to.
So if you could limit that to a very limited number, if we have a,
Yeah, well, the text amendments will be extremely limited in number. It's the rezonings, if we get multiple
Yeah.
large rezonings,
Right.
there might be some late nights, but we'll handle.
thank you.
Are you
Brought
still,
to mind one question that I noticed earlier. We had a citizen initiated request for a text amendment.
it. Yes, sir.
Remember in the last planning board meeting we had, there was some discussion about the proper procedure
Yes,
to bring those in. Did we get all of that clarified?
that
And if
is,
so, can you share that?
that process Aaron Holland is working on right now. I believe he's trying to prepare a form, and I think he's going to go before city council to get that process approved so that anybody who requests a text amendment has to go through that process, whether it be a board member, whether it be a citizen, whether it be whomever, they have to go through that process so that we can track all these things and so that everybody has the same set of rules to play by.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Christmas, sorry.
Mr. Witten brought up earlier that these are housekeeping and bringing things into line into code. Are that still going to happen, or everything's going to stop and wait for the unified code?
Unless there's an urgent matter that comes up. So there are a couple of more urgent text amendments on the May meeting. So accessory dwellings is one that I'm hearing from people at least twice a week. And we're needing some sort of resolution on that one. But for the most part, these are going to be housekeeping items. But, or things where we're just simply deficient. We just don't have standards for it. And it makes it really hard for staff to make an informed decision to any
Okay,
member
you're
of the
going to
public.
continue.
So if we find something urgent, we will discuss it with this board at a prior meeting. We'll get direction from this board as far as whether they'd like to move forward with an amendment. And then at the next meeting, we'll produce language. So I
Okay.
think that's probably the best process to go
Okay.
through.
That's good. Thank you.
Mr. Bass? All right, staff?
One comment, we will be welcoming the new ETJ board member, Chad Huffine, at your May meeting. So make him feel welcome, please. And I'm sure he'll fit in really well. And we look forward to having him. He will fulfill Mr. Moody's remaining term. So his term will expire June of 2023. Also, just a reminder, for those of you whose terms, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Ward, your terms are about to expire. Please reapply so that we can get you guys back into the process if you're
Back till
interested in
June.
reapplying.
We have to reply by
That's
June.
correct.
I thought Mr. Banesh.
He is another one.
Oh, it's three of us.
Three,
Three
yeah.
of us.
Okay,
I've already advised Mr. Benesh. so
okay, all right.
Yes, go through the county, of course.
Just don't let it slip through the cracks if you want to be reappointed.
All right, well, nothing further. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anybody oppose adjourning?
Good discussion, gentlemen. Thank you.